I'm Monte. 16 years ago, I published one of the biggest, most deluxe, best-received campaign settings of all time. Ptolus is... You can read all about Ptolus on the Kickstarter page. The setting, the content, the beautiful embellishments, and you should absolutely read that. But maybe right now, I'll just talk to you gamer to gamer. Rather than explain what Ptolus is, I'll tell you why I created it. You see, before it was a huge book with all sorts of add-ons and bookmarks and things, it was just my personal campaign setting. I created it just for my players and I, as I worked on the new edition of D&D. I wanted my campaign setting to embrace my two loves, urban adventures and dungeon adventures. But I didn't want just the typical setup where you go to the dungeon and come back to town and then have a separate adventure there. I wanted to interweave those two concepts tightly, so the PCs could go back and forth between the two easily and frequently, and so I could create adventures that involved both. I wanted to do something that captured the very essence of the genre. I'd run plenty of dungeon adventures before, but I wanted to distill the concept down to its very core. I wanted a dungeon, but something so big that different groups go down into it all the time. Sometimes they make it back, sometimes they don't. I wanted the dungeon as its own kind of wilderness to be explored. To tie this into an urban setting, I wanted to capture the feeling of a gold rush town. But instead of people mining for gold, they're exploring a newly discovered mega-dungeon. I populated the city with people and groups that would interact in interesting ways with both the dungeon delvers and the dungeon itself. So it's a big, storied city that turns out to be built above a massive system of underground tunnels, passages, and chambers. And then, atop the whole thing, I put the Spire. The Spire makes it a campaign setting where the big, climactic end of the campaign, which is the tower at the top of the Spire, hangs over everyone's head, both literally and metaphorically, even at level 1. By the time I made Ptolus into a product, I'd been playing in that world for 6 years or so, and for much of that time, I was playing twice a week. That means I had a really good idea of what GMs would need to run games in that city. I knew what the players would look for and need. I included quick descriptions for common NPCs the PCs might encounter on a particular district. I created page references in the margins so that when a character, group, item, or location is mentioned, you know immediately where you can find more information on that. I created diagrams that show how the various organizations in the city interrelate. Despite it being one of the biggest RPG books ever, I also wanted it to be one of the easiest to use. I'm gratified to have heard over the years that GMs have found it to be as fun and useful as I'd hoped. I've heard about so many great Ptolus campaigns that people have run, and each one is different because there's so much material there, and still so much room for a GM to make it their own. And now, here in 2020, with the help of my amazing team here at MCG, and hopefully with your help as well, I'm going to make this book available again, redesigned for both 5th edition games and Cypher System games. Really excited to open the gates of Ptolus once again. Want to come in?